Well, welcome to the Kim Iverson Show. Thank you guys so much for being here. It is obviously a very sad day, scary day for our nation, for all of us. I think with the assassination of Charlie Kirk that happened really just mere moments ago, um, really hard to process. I think we're all in shock. Um, and there's actually a lot to say about this. Um, Political violence is on the rise in the country, and we are entering the early stages of a failed state. And this is one of those symptoms. One of the symptoms is the rise of political violence, of political targeting, of trying to silence dissent through guns. And we're seeing an increase, and it's a pretty stark increase that has been going on since really 2016. The country's just become more and more divided. But let's talk about Charlie Kirk for a moment here. 31 years old, about to turn 32 here in about a month. He would have turned 32. He's got a wife and two kids. Um, and just taken from the world way too early. Whether, certainly there were many who didn't agree with Charlie Kirk. There were many who did agree with Charlie Kirk. And the whole beauty of being an American is we're supposed to be able to disagree with each other. And Charlie Kirk was one that he's been taking a lot of heat from all sides lately. So this could have been anybody. In fact, the shooter is still at large. That is the latest. They thought they had caught the guy. I think we've got the image of the guy that was um, that they claimed was the guy. For a while, people were claiming that this older man was the one that was, you see him being carted away there. I mean, that looks like, but they claim that this guy was the shooter, but it's actually come out that this is not the shooter, that guy is not. The old white-haired boomer that you might see images of is not the shooter. We do not know who the shooter is because the shooter is still at large at this moment. Hopefully, while I'm talking, they get the guy or woman, whoever did it. But that's who this guy here is, not the shooter. Just to be very clear to everybody, this is not the shooter. We don't know who did it. This happened at Utah Valley University. It's a school in Orem, Utah. Orem, Utah. Utah is a Republican state. Orem is particularly Mormon. He was rushed to the hospital, to Utah Valley Hospital. I think it's real close to Orem. I think it's in Provo. It's about 10, 15 minutes away. And we did blur this. We blurred the video. The video is just so graphic of him being shot. It was just obvious from the imagery from the video that he clearly was not likely to survive. The fact they haven't been able to get the shooter, and the shooter was clearly, it looks like, I mean, how do you hit that artery? How do you hit that artery if you're not, do you think it was by chance? Or do you think it was a really great shooter? Somebody who's skilled, very skilled shooter, I should say. It's really scary that we're living in this time right now where somebody like Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump, I mean, we've had numerous assassination attempts and even successful assassinations over the last just really short period of time. Really, things are escalating. I would say even in this past year, things have been escalating. And this is state failure is not a single moment, but it's a process. And that process, these are some of the early stages of the process. Just the increased polarization, the politicization of the civil institutions, erosion of um, just erosion of everything. I mean, this is just the increased polarization is really quite alarming in this country at this point. Charlie Kirk is the first political commentator to be killed in the history of the country, I think. I don't think this has ever happened. Certainly, we receive threats. We receive even, maybe, they're targeting and violence. Journalists are targeted all the time. Journalists are killed all the time. We see that happening in Gaza and other places. But this is the first time that a U.S. political commentator has been killed specifically for being a political commentator that I'm aware of. I could be wrong on that. So correct me if I'm wrong. But I think he's the first to have ever been killed here in the U.S. for being a U.S. political commentator. And they don't know who did it. They don't have the person. We don't know the political motivation. Of course, the first initial reports that came out was that white-haired boomer guy, and then people were saying, well, he's a registered liberal Democrat, and of course, going in that direction. But we don't know who shot Charlie Kirk, and might not ever know. I mean, if they haven't caught the person at this point, it's hard to imagine. And if this person was very skilled, it's hard to imagine that they'll ever catch him, which is going to lead to many conspiracy theories. Maybe even just conspiracies, not even theories, but actual conspiracies. I mean, we could go down the rabbit hole a million different directions to figure out, if they never catch the shooter, what the motivation of the shooter was. But that would be the point. I mean, if we never figure out who the shooter is, and if we don't know their political motivation, or even personal motivation, for all we know, they could be somebody he knows that was pissed off about something, and who knows, right? But if we never know, then this could be used and weaponized, quite frankly, for a bunch of different agendas to silence us, to control us, as if this event itself wasn't silencing in its own way. I mean, that's the point of something like this, is to scare all of us. To scare us into silence, to be afraid. And they could use this. Oh, they could say, well, Charlie, was pro-Israel, and so some, pro-Palestine person got him, and we got to silence the pro-Palestine. See, they're terrorists. They're terrorists. We got to monitor them. We got to follow them. We got to do what we can. Or they could say, no, it was actually the pro-Israel crowd, not the pro-Palestine crowd, that did it because they were mad that he platformed Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson. They were pissed off, and so, yeah, they got him. Or they're going to say it's the liberals, because the liberals are insane. Democrats are dangerous and insane, and they can't take it when somebody has a different opinion, so they had to kill him, just like they tried to shoot Donald Trump. Although we have our theories on that one, right? Or they'll say it was a trans shooter because he was talking about trans trans shootings right at the moment he was shot. That's what he was talking about at the event. So somebody was asking about that, and then he got shot. So clearly it was a trans person who did it. We got to silence the trans people. Or they'll say religious, anti-religious, anti-Christian. Didn't Donald Trump just yesterday or speak or sign maybe another executive order to protect Christians? It was instead of anti-Semitism, it was for anti-Christian. I think he was getting too much heat for, so much anti-Semitism protection, but what about the Christians? And so he kind of did something for the Christians. So somebody could say, well, it was Charlie Kirk was being targeted because he's, a God-fearing man and religious, and so it was some atheist zealot or Islamic terror. Right, they'll go in that direction. I mean, how many directions will they go in if they don't catch the person? And will that and then we ask the question, because here we are already going down conspiracy theories. Is that by design? So that they could then utilize this to, really serve any of their agendas. That's what we have to worry about. So not only do we have to worry for our lives, especially those of us that do this type of thing for a living, those of us that are outspoken, um, not only do we have to worry for our lives, but now we have to also worry about how they're going to weaponize this to censor us. So it's just, it's very concerning. It's concerning because there have been an increase in threats against those of us doing this line of work. I've had an increase in threats in my own life at the moment. Um, and to see something like this happen, I mean, and his wife and children, I mean, just 31 years old. I mean, it's just devastating. It's totally devastating. I don't want this for anybody. I don't care what their opinions are. We could disagree on absolutely everything. I still don't want them to be shot and killed or harmed in any way. I mean, this is just tragic. But threats have increased. Let's talk about this increase. The increase has really started, I think you could all guess, 2016, right? That I think is when we had a real shift in the country in general. We saw this major, just a shift. And I'm sure if, when the historians look back many years from now and they look at this time period and, the failing of the United States, what led to it, and they kind of do this dissection of 100 years of US policies that led us to the demise of the nation. It'll probably, of course, go back further than 2016. But I think 2016 is when we really saw the shift happen. That is when we really noticed that there was real political division. I mean, I think we all got sucked into it in one way, shape, or form. I mean, I embarrassingly got sucked into it in 2016, where, I was mean to my own mother at Thanksgiving because she was more supportive of Donald Trump. And I was shocked that Donald Trump won. I was one of those people. I was a bit brainwashed. And, I was brainwashed by the mainstream news because I wasn't in the news business at that time. I was doing entertainment radio, living my normal life, like thinking about other things. And, um, and so, yeah, I think we all, many of us got sucked into the kind of the brainworm, and many are still sucked into it, even on the other side, even on the Trump side, the people that then look at liberals and think liberals are evil demons that are trying to ruin the world, with their agendas. And I think anytime you think that there's some sort of a conspiratorial agenda, then there is a risk of becoming more violent. There's a risk of this radicalization that happens, and and I'm not saying that then what we do is we censor any of this or anything like that. I think it's got to be a cultural check that we as a society do on each other, where we say we don't want to become radical. We want to be able to listen to everybody, and we need to get back to taking the stance of, well, we're just going to have to agree to disagree. Whatever happened to that phrase? Let's agree to disagree. Or whatever happened to, well, you know, that's okay. We have a difference in opinion, but that's what makes America great. I mean, whatever happened to that? And instead, it's agree with me or you're an evil demon. I mean, that's where we're at as a society. Let's face it. And that's happening on both sides. That's liberals thinking Trump supporters are evil demons who are going to drive the country into a dystopian, fascist future. And meanwhile, you've got now people on the right thinking liberals are driving the country into this dystopian fascist future. Both sides believing that the other side is evil. It's not just a difference in opinion. Well, we want the best for our country. We want the best for ourselves, the best for our families, the best for our communities. Instead, it's this thought that there's some plot. There's some plot, some evil plot that the people on the other side have against us, whatever that plot is. And everybody's pointing a finger at each other, saying, you're the one with the plot. And your plot, you're an evil demon, and your plot is going to ruin our society. And you're doing it on purpose. That's the thinking, right? It's that you are purposefully trying to ruin society. For what purpose, I don't know. But it's because you're just an evil demon. And we don't say, you know what? We're Americans. Let's just agree to disagree. I don't need to know who you voted for. And if I do know who you voted for, I could just respect it because we have a difference in opinion and that's okay. We're allowed to go to the polls. We're allowed to vote for who we want. We're supposed to. It's America. That's the whole point of this great experiment, remember? And oh yeah, you're allowed to have a different opinion and we're allowed to debate about it and argue about it and support certain different causes. Whatever happened to that? And now instead it's, you're an evil demon and you're trying to ruin the world. So political violence has risen since 2016. The Capitol Police, since 2016, have found that they have about triple the number of political threats targeting lawmakers, their families, and staff. It's about triple at this point that they've been dealing with. And year over year, it's been increasing. In fact, just from last year, 2024, I mean, we haven't finished 2025 yet, so we'll see what the threat numbers are for this year. But the threat numbers against U.S. lawmakers in 2024 compared to 2023 has increased by 20% alone. Just from 2023 to 2024. Now you could say, well, but 2024 was an election year, and that could be true. So we'll see how the 2025 numbers pan out. But year over year since 2016, the numbers have tripled. The threats against lawmakers, the investigations that Capitol Police have to lob open because of threats to lawmakers, their family members, and staff has tripled since 2016. So we have gotten way worse. From 2008 to 2016, we had really one targeted political shooting, if you remember. That was Kathy Giffords. Sorry, Gabrielle Giffords. Gabrielle Giffords was shot January 8th, 2011. She was hosting her Congress on Your Corner event in a supermarket parking lot in Tucson, Arizona, when a 22-year-old man opened fire with a Glock 19 semi-automatic pistol with high-capacity magazines and shot Giffords point blank in the head. She survived, by the way, amazingly, but she was shot point blank in the head before then indiscriminately firing into the crowd, and 6 people were killed, including a federal judge, Giffords' aide, a 9-year-old little girl, and others, and over a dozen others were wounded in that politically motivated attack. And really, that was the only real. There were other attacks in 2008 to 2016, but they were on, like against Planned Parenthood or against different like organizations, like more against political ideologies than they were against individuals. So groups, they were more symbolic, like the Holocaust Museum. Who else was shot? There was Dr. George Tiller. He was a prominent abortion provider, and he was shot point blank at his church in Wichita, Kansas. The Knoxville Unitarian Church, which is a liberal congregation, was shot during a children's performance. 2 were killed, 7 were wounded. That happened in 2008. So there was there was a few, I shouldn't say a lot, but there were these attacks against more general ideology and not against individual people. The only individual targeted attack was against Gabrielle Giffords. But now you fast forward from 2016 to 2025, and we've had a number of increases in these political attacks. We've got, if you remember, In 2017, Steve Scalise, Republican, a gunman opened fire on Republicans practicing for congressional baseball. House Majority Whip Scalise was critically wounded, several others injured. The gunman was James Hodgkinson, a left-wing extremist with anti-Trump, anti-GOP uh, sentiments. He was killed by police. But it isn't just, Elon Musk posted today after this happened, after Charlie Kirk was killed, assassinated. Elon Musk posted, something about liberals. It's the left. They're deadly. They're the ones that kill. But that's not true. It's not true. In fact, I should have looked this up, but it was a bit sidetracked today. But Gabrielle Giffords, what side of the aisle was she on? She was a member of the Democratic Party, and she was shot by, I believe the attacker was right wing, I suppose. So, left and right do this to each other. This isn't really a one-sided thing. And I think with Elon, sometimes I just wish Elon would just shut up. A lot of times, just shut up. And this is one of those things I just wish he would shut up about. Like now is not the time to be, oh, this is a left, it's the left that does this, when it's the left and the right. Both sides, this is the problem, Elon, and you're actually kind of helping the problem by, oh, it's that side. They're the evil demons. And what are you going to do about evil demons? You're going to eradicate them, right? What do you want to do, Elon? What do you want to do about the evil demons? Now's not the time. Obama, Biden, Clinton, some figures over at CNN, they were mailed pipe bombs, if you remember this. There were 16 different pipe bombs that were mailed to them. None of them detonated. This was now, by the way, I'm just giving you the list. You might say, well, that was a false flag, or that person was set up. And that's, in some of these cases, I agree with you. I'm not going to, but I'm just pointing out that, and so some people might say, well, that one, because that was Caesar Sayoc, if you remember that. And some people would say, well, Caesar, that was a setup. What do we know? He was this far right extremist type person that sent these pipe bombs, and then people say, well, no, but it wasn't really him or something. He ended up going to prison for 20 years, got a 20-year sentence for this. But some people say, well, but he was really, the left set him up because they wanted to have a far right extremist because they kept yapping on about far right extremism. And it's true. I mean, the left was sitting, for a long time, and this is, and still, but really worse, I think, in Trump's first term. They've calmed down. I've noticed they have calmed down. You have to give them some credit, I suppose. But now they're not, going absolutely insane thinking that Trump is Hitler, even though now might be a little bit more appropriate considering, him and Netanyahu are best buddies. But, they were going crazy for a long time there, saying anybody who was the right was just taking us down this crazy dystopian path. And they were all extremists, and they kept talking about right-wing extremism. That's the biggest threat we have in our country, which is just not true. And kept going on and on and on about that. And so then we had these kind of things happen, like Obama, Biden, Clinton, the pipe bombs being sent to them, and also the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping campaign, which happened in 2020. And they say, see, it was these right-wing extremists. And so there's a thinking that they could have been a, like a false flag type event or set up, which may be true. I may or may not believe that. A federal judge in 2020 was there was an incident. Anti-feminist attorney Roy Den Hollander disguised himself as a delivery man and shot into Judge Salas's home. Her son, Daniel, was killed. Her husband was critically wounded. And Hollander, the guy that shot, died by suicide. And the judge was nonpartisan. I don't know exactly what it was that triggered this, but Roy Den Hollander was said to be far-right anti-feminist. Okay, Lee Zeldin on July 21st in 2020 in Fairport, New York. He's a gubernatorial nominee. Zeldin was attacked on stage by David Jacobonus, wielding a pointed keychain. Zeldin fought him off, unhurt. Jacobonus, I guess, is his name. An army vet with no proven political motive got probation in federal court. And Lee Zeldin's a Republican, but the motive was unclear. Remember Brett Kavanaugh, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, on June 8th, 2022 in Maryland. Nicholas John Roski arrived at Kavanaugh's home armed with a gun and zip ties, but he surrendered after calling 911, later pleading guilty to attempted assassination. He admitted anger over abortion and gun rulings. So, Justice Kavanaugh is supposedly, they list him here as nonpartisan justice, but I think we all think that even though these judges are technically nonpartisan, they do lean one way or the other. I'm not sure which one the other, Esther Salas, which way does she, must have been a left because the attacker was right. And Justice Brett Kavanaugh, the attacker was left. So we know Kavanaugh's more right. Paul Pelosi, another one, a little unclear, but he's a Democrat, obviously, a Pelosi. And the attacker they claimed was far right, but that didn't really match up because the attacker had all kinds of, I think that one was just something else, to be honest with you. But that did happen, and maybe it was politically motivated, but it didn't really seem, that one was really weird. Wasn't that one weird? That was weird. Of course, Donald Trump, the attempted assassination on him in Butler, Pennsylvania. Thomas Matthew Crooks, we don't, can you believe that there was never any further investigation into this, really? Here, a president, an almost sitting president, former sitting president, soon to be sitting president, shot and bleeding, and they don't really even, have we heard anything else about this one? This one was weird. And this one kind of reminds me of maybe what will happen if they don't apprehend Charlie Kirk's shooter. It's just kind of this, just forget about it, let's just move on and not ask any more questions, which makes it even weirder. Thomas Matthew Crooks, how did this kid go from not being able to make the high school rifle team to suddenly being able to shoot Trump in the air? There's a lot of questions there. And also a big question is, why haven't they further investigated this? They're just like, well, the kid was dead, so nothing else to investigate. That's it. Just recently, Minnesota State Speaker Melissa Hortman, Democrat. So Democrats were just attacked. So a bunch of Democrats were attacked. Melissa Hortman, Senator John Hoffman. The shooter actually went to 3 different homes in Minnesota. One of them happened to be on vacation. Thank goodness for her and her family. But the others, Melissa Hortman was killed, and her and her husband were killed. Senator Hoffman and his wife were critically injured in their homes. They were all Democrats, but the investigation, they do believe it to be politically motivated. They were all Democrats, they were all senators, and so obviously something there. But again, so to try to blame this on one side or the other, this is just, we've become politically extreme, and the attacks are happening. The attacks are coming from both sides, and that's how we're really reaching this kind of failed nation. We're having those symptoms of a failed state, early symptoms of a failed state. And it's not just the political violence, it's a lot of other things going on in our political sphere. The people, we no longer have a voice. Everything is from the bought-off politicians. It's whoever has the deepest pockets. And the ones with the deepest pockets buy both sides. And that's what we've seen. It doesn't matter who's in office. It's a uniparty. Both sides are controlled by the same deep-pocketed people with their various deep-pocketed motivations. And so that's another symptom of the failed state. And what does that leave us? It leaves us with the people squabbling with each other because we can't be heard anymore by the politicians. We've lost control over our political system completely. So all we have left is to turn on each other, I guess, because if you can't control the political system, then you just start trying to control each other. And if you can't actually control each other, then you just start trying to kill each other. And that's where we're at. And now, here we are, Charlie Kirk, conservative commentator, shot in the neck while speaking at Utah Valley University. 31-year-old wife and kids shot, assassinated, not just shot, assassinated. This was an assassination. And if they don't catch the shooter today, I just don't know, I mean, there's always hope that they catch the shooter. If they don't catch him today, maybe they will tomorrow, maybe the day after that. I mean, who knows? But somebody that's clearly this skilled, it looks, and hasn't been caught yet. I mean, hopefully that changes, and hopefully the person gets caught any minute now. Early symptoms of a failed nation, guys. We have to stop demonizing each other. I don't believe that anybody has negative intentions. I don't think liberals with the trans agenda and their anti-godless ways, I don't think that they have any desire whatsoever to ruin our nation, ruin our communities, and to just do it out of spite just because they're evil lizard people. I just don't think that. And I don't think that conservatives who want whatever it is a more Christian white nation, maybe, some of them want that, and even then, even that crowd, I don't think they want demise for the rest of us. I don't think that conservatives who love Trump, who love Israel, who are total Zionists, I don't even think they want to ruin society and to just turn America into a shithole country just for kicks and giggles. I just don't believe that about anybody. I believe everybody wants a better world, and everybody wants to make the society better and to live happier and more free for what they believe. And they could be wrong, they could be misguided, they might I mean, they might be really wrong in their thinking, thinking like there's definitely people out there who believe controlling you is giving you freedom. I mean, and they're completely backwards brain, but I don't think they're doing it out of ill will. I don't think that they want to ruin society. I don't think that's why they're doing it. I don't think the reason why Christians want to make sure that you know, live like a Christian on Sundays, for example, even if they mandate it. I don't think that they're doing mandates. I don't think people mandate things because they're trying to ruin society. They might be, and they might not realize they are, but I don't think they're trying to, and that's the difference. I don't think anybody tried to ruin society when they wanted to mandate vaccines during the COVID pandemic. I don't think that was their intention. Were they doing it? In my opinion, yeah, they were. But I don't think they were trying to, is my point. I think they had good intentions, and I think most people do. And we have to come at each other, give each other the benefit of the doubt. We're trying to make the world a better place, all of us. We might have different ideas. We might have different thinking about how we get to that point, but we all want to make the world a better place. And we just have to remember this. We have to remember this. And we have to then remember that the answer to words is not violence or censorship. It's more words. Argue it out. Have a conversation, debate. That is what we do as Americans. At least that's what we're supposed to do. And Charlie Kirk was a great American. He was a great American. And he did what he thought was best for his country. And I disagreed with Charlie Kirk on many things, but he was a great American, doing things that he thought was great for his country. And that makes him a great American. Nothing else. The fact he was doing what he thought he needed to do to make America great. I give my absolute condolences to his family. This is tragic and horrible. Everybody's shocked. The whole Turning Point community, which is Charlie's organization, they're, I'm sure, absolutely shocked and devastated. But even outside of Turning Point, even outside of his family, even outside of the Republican Party and those who agreed with Charlie Kirk on everything, all the rest of us are devastated, and I give the condolences to the country because we really are going to need it. All right, guys. Coming up, we do have an interview with Dr. Olga Ravasi. This interview was recorded in advance earlier today to accommodate her schedule. So we did not, at this point during this interview, know about what had happened with Charlie. She has since emailed me with her shock and condolences about Charlie. But during this interview, this was before a couple of hours prior to Charlie being shot and assassinated and killed. So keep that in mind during the interview. However, it is a great interview to watch. And, to try to, maybe it's a good thing we don't talk about it just to try to, we got plenty of other things to talk about, that's for sure, in this country that Charlie would want us to keep talking about. That was what his whole thing was. His whole thing was discussion, discourse, talk it out. And he would want us to keep talking. And we have to remember that, not to allow ourselves to be silenced, but to keep talking. So thank you guys so much for watching. And we're going to take a break for a commercial. And then we have Dr. Olga Ravasi coming up here on The Kim Iverson Show. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.